Recently, Jarmo Roivers handed the win in Top Methanol Dragster when Eero Kilpalainen was found to be underweight.
Hello and welcome to round 4 of the FIA European Drag Racing Championship. We're at Gardemoen in Norway, about 2 hours from Oslo. Now in Top Fuel, can Gardemoen beat Alan Jackson? And in Pro Stock, will Nicholas Anderson clinch the championship here?
Welcome here to Gardemoen in beautiful Norway. Round 4 of the championship. Quite a few questions to answer. This may be reigning champion Barry Sheevel's last chance to wrest the championship from this man, Gardemoen. Gordy having a dream debut season. But also lurking in the background at a serious challenge for the championship is Alan Jackson. In Pro Stock, Nicholas Anderson is in the lead. Up now to this man, Panasonic's Michael Malmgren. Can he take the championship away from Anderson? Jakob Ferrer and Jari Konala also in the reckoning.
Gardemoen is based on an old airstrip built by the Germans in the Second World War. I'm standing on part of the old runway when behind me you can see the modern drag strip. Up until the end of last year, the strip was still a reserve runway for the Norwegian Air Force, but now it's totally dedicated to the sport of drag racing.
I'm joined in the commentary position by Russ. Russ, it's getting very tight at the top of Pro Stock.
Well, as we come into the quarter-finals of Pro Stock, you can see on the right lane there Michael Malmgren from Sweden up against Jari Konala. Now, the situation is that Michael is second in the championship to Nicholas Anderson. Michael has to win here today to keep those hopes alive. He must get through in this race against Jari Konala, otherwise his hopes of winning the championship have pretty well evaporated.
Well, really then the pressure on the Panasonic man, the Oldsmobile, has been a trusty steed all year. Michael has improved the reaction times. I think he feels that there's been something wrong with the car, maybe the chassis or the clutch. Something in there has been stopping him performing at his best. Things are getting better. Susie Bjorkman urges Jari Konala up to the line. Both cars go into pre-stage. A lot depends on this race. Well, nobody wants to stage first. Both into stage. It looked to be Malmgren away just by a tiny amount. But look at Konala. A half-track Jari Konala out of the lead. Oh, a disaster for Malmgren. Jari Konala takes him not only on reaction time, but also on the ET, as you can see. And that more or less wraps it up, I think, for Nicholas Anderson, even though he's not in this race. We go to our next quarter-final, Jakob Ferrer and Paul Tammy Brander with the Mustang. Well, Jakob's been a real hard charger in '99, came back from a spill in Sweden in '98 and hasn't looked back since. I think Brander will feel, Russ, that he's going to be the lucky one to come away with a win here.
Well, certainly you wouldn't expect Brander to win. He may win this heat, but he certainly won't win here today because obviously he'll be meeting Nicholas Anderson later. But as far as this race is concerned, I guess my money would still be on Jakob Ferrer, but, you know, Paul Brander could pull out a surprise.
Let's look at it this way, Russ. Nobody's easy to get round in Pro Stock. If you've qualified in the top 8, as these guys obviously have, then you're going to have a hard race. Don't forget, reaction times are what these clockwork running Pro Stocks depend on. Factory-backed hot rods, in effect, 500 cubic inch engines and times in the low 7 seconds and heading for 200 miles an hour. Jakob Ferrer, the white car. Paul Brander with the blue car. Here we go, the cars in pre-stage. Jakob Ferrer's in stage, Brander follows him. Whoa, look at that, the lights run down. And it looked to be Ferrer away just ahead. Half-track still it takes the win. That was such a close race. Well, look at this, very little to choose in the reaction times, and just the ET taking it for Jakob Ferrer, and he had a grandstand view of Brander all the way down the track.
Now, the significance of that race, of course, because we have an odd number of Pro Stock cars, is that the winner of that race will go straight through to the final. Now, this is the big one, of course, Graham, because Nicholas Anderson here is the championship leader. Now, the bottom line is, if he goes out at this race, it still leaves Michael Malmgren with a mathematical chance of winning the championship at Santapod. But I don't think he will.
I don't think he'll be fazed by this at all, Russ. He's such a cool guy. Unless you put Tommy Liner in the other lane, I've not seen Nicholas Anderson falter at all. And I would imagine in this race that Kjetil Hauger, as good a racer as he is really going to be up against it. We shall see. The nerves aren't any less for the drivers. Kjetil Hauger knows his way around the start line.
Kjetil Hauger did get to the final at Santapod, so if he gets a good start here, he could beat Anderson.
Here we go. This is the most intense moment. Anderson, second one into pre-stage. Neither car wants stage first. Hauger goes in. Nicholas Anderson follows him. And the green. Whoa, look at this. Away they go. It looks to be Hauger out ahead. All the way is he going to beat Anderson. The horsepower of the Firebird just drags Anderson through. That was a close one. Well, take a look at this in slow motion. You can see on reaction time, Hauger had him away from the start line. Anderson was behind at half track. And look at this, using every bit of horsepower in that Firebird to drag him through by about a wheel's length at the finish line. Sets up our semi-finals, Nicholas Anderson and Jari Konala. Jakob Ferrer with a bye run.
So some great racing from Pro Stock there, and Nicholas Anderson was almost out there in the quarterfinals, which is exactly what Michael Malmgren would have wanted. But it's not to be. Nicholas Anderson is still in the hunt and could clinch the championship.
Let's just remind you of how Anderson has made the road to the top of the championship in 1999 at Santapod in round one, took the win over Kjetil Hauger. There was no stopping the Firebird in that race either, although it wasn't quite as close as Gardemoen. Things going a lot more Anderson's way. Then we came to the semi-final at Alastaro in Finland. Nicholas Anderson's nemesis in the shape of Tommy Liner. Liner has never lost to Anderson in all his racing career, and things were no different in the semi-final. That was a very distraught young man. At Mantorp in Sweden, the final came down to Jari Konala and our man Nicholas Anderson. And you can see that Anderson was real back on form and took the win by a couple of car lengths to arrive where he is now ahead in the championship. Barry Schievel's crew chief, Rune Fjell, making the final checks on the engine. Up against Robin Reed in this first quarterfinal. We already know the form of Robin Reed, yet another of the drag racing Reed family. Robin really earned his spurs, I think, in Sweden.
Now, from a championship point of view, it's pretty well all over for Barry. Mathematically, he could still win the championship, but we won't even go into that. I think it's really a distant memory for him. But he will want to win here today, get through to the final and beat either Gordy or Allen as a matter of pride.
You're absolutely right, Ross. The big thing now with the Wins team, I think, is to get that car successfully down the track. For Robin Reed, well, nothing at all to prove. Really, he's going to be an obstruction in Barry's way to getting the championship, and there'll be no giving way to a fellow Brit in any way, shape or form. Knut Soderquist, the man out ahead, the crew chief for Robin Reed's car. Rune Fjell moves away. It's now all down to the drivers, and the sound of those two 5,500 horsepower Top Fuel motors rattling away on the start line. Both cars in pre-stage. Barry Schievel's rolls forward in stage, but Robin Reed there follows him on the green. Well, nothing to choose. Look at this. Both cars struggle away from the line. Barry keeps with it and takes the win. Robin, the first, I think, to lose traction and click it off. Well, you could see what a struggle it was. Quicker reaction time for Robin, but Barry drove round him a 5.12, in and out the throttle, really pedaling the car at half track as he loses traction, but takes the win with a 5.1. Well, we move on now to the other man in with a chance at the championship, and this is Alan Jackson, of course. Well, remember at Mantorp in the final, Tommy Happinen and Alan Jackson and Al really came out on top of that one. A smoking happening gave way to a winning Jackson. And of course, the man leading the championship, North American Gordy Bonin, the prolonged Top Fuel car, Barry Sheevel's 4-second car from last year. Well, this was the way things went for Gordy Bonin at Mantorp. Way out ahead in that race, chucks the blower belt off the car, and that was the end of his race. It was Robin Reed coming by to take that win. Consequently, a lot depends on this race again. Gordy Bonin will be out for revenge, Russ.
Well, the situation, of course, is that Alan Jackson, as he comes into this event, is only 37 points behind Gordy in the championship. Now, if Alan was to win this race and then go on to win the event, it would certainly level the series and keep it all wide open for Sandervold.
Well, John Wright and the team having real problems getting the car of Al Jackson started. You can see it wouldn't kick into life, and Gordy Bonin already has the burnout completed and is almost ready to race. Well, very sportingly, I think, Al Jackson does a very short burnout, doesn't want to keep Gordy waiting on the start line.
I don't know about you, Graham, but I don't think that burnout was sufficient.
Well, no way. There's not enough traction on that track. Needs a big burnout, an awful lot of horsepower required.
Do you think that was nerves? I mean, he knows how important this race is. Another racer would have made sure that his tyres were hot enough.
I'm pretty sure that Al Jackson was being a good sportsman there. Didn't want to keep Gordy Bonin waiting an overdue amount of time on the start line. And that's all credit to that team. Al Jackson, what a hero. Here we go, moving into pre-stage. It's Jackson first in the pre-stage. Gordy Bonin follows him in. Al Jackson knocks it forward that last 8 inches. Look at this. This is how precise those cars move. Gordy Bonin follows him in on the green. Jackson, as we thought, straight up in smoke. But look at this, problems for Bonin as well. Clicks the car off early. Something must have let go in there. And I have to say, Russ, that's a real let-off for Gordy Bonin.
A big let-off, and of course, Alan Jackson there. Still in the chance for the championship, but it's very, very slim.
Well, I think the satisfaction of beating Gordy Bonin out the hole with a quicker reaction time will compensate.
Broke a blower belt again. Thank God he smoked the tires. But the thing was on a pretty good run of it. That was part of the problem that we had is one of those, what else can go wrong? A magneto went wrong, so it had a real bad 60-foot time. And then it was lumbering on down there and broke the blower belt. And I thought, here we go again, same as Stockholm last weekend, but the guy never went by me, so it was the slowest win I've ever had.
Our final then in Top Fuel, Barry Sheevels and Gordy Bonin. So much depends on that, Russ. Welcome back to Pro Stock semi-finals here at Gardemoen in Norway. Jakob Ferrer, first man out with this beautiful slippery white Firebird, has a bye run in the semi.
Well, of course, Graham, he's got the choice of just taking it easy or going for a good time to try and get lane choice in the final. But one thing I would like to say is that the track here at Gardemoen is actually excellent.
Well, perhaps I should point out that the winner in the previous round in a race gets lane choice. And if one lane has had an oil down, then that will be the lane to avoid. So a quick time may be necessary. Chances are Ferrer will be racing Nicholas Anderson in the final. Doesn't take it easy, pushes it all the way through, ran a 7.22 on that bye run. Well, this one's going to be a real counter. Mathematically, Nicholas Anderson, I think, still has to take this race to have Michael Malmgren really out of it. So, up against it with Jari Connolly.
Well, I think you're right, Graham. It might still technically be possible for Michael to win the championship, but I don't really think so. And certainly if Nicholas takes this win here, then he will be champion. But if there is one person that could really take it down to the line, then it would be Jari Connolly.
Well, Jari's been around the Pro Stock cars for a lot of years and always been a semi-final, a finalist. Take nothing away from this Abergs Dodge team. They really are difficult to beat. Nicholas Anderson will know he's been in a race. Here we go, into the pre-stage. Connolly is the first man in there, waits for Anderson. It's becoming a little bit of a show with Anderson to be the second man into stage. Waits for Connolly to roll forward. We've seen lots of start line rhetoric from the pro stocks this year. Connolly into stage. Anderson makes him wait briefly, rolls it in on the green. Well, it looked to be Connolly away, but in actual fact, whoa, side by side at half travel. Anderson takes the win. That was a close race. Well, Jonas and the crew are happy boys. In slow motion, you can see Connolly actually had Anderson out the hole, a quicker reaction time. But again, the horsepower that Anderson's crew are making in that Firebird made all the difference. A tenth of a second in ET equated to about a car's length on the finish line. Our final then in Pro Stock, Nicholas Anderson and Jakob Ferrer. Straight up, let's watch that final now. This is going to be a real goodie. Nicholas Anderson has to be the favourite, but Jakob Ferrer is now proving himself to be a real hard competitor to get round in Pro Stock. First, a word from FIA drag racing promoter Keith Bartlett.
Fourth round of this year's championship. Nicholas is last year's champion. He's been tearing everyone up this year. I'm just certain Nicholas will just continue to do so. Nicholas will win.
I think it's on the cards for Ferrer to take a win. Surely you can't be competing for all this length of time in Pro Stock and never just have that lucky break. We've seen that in the finals, Anderson can sometimes be a little bit jittery. Maybe this is going to be the time when Jakob Ferrer makes his move and leaves the championship still with a chink of light in the door for Michael Malmgren.
Personally, I don't think so. I think that even if Nicholas is beaten off the line like he was in the semi-finals, the power of his motor is still going to take him through to the win.
Very little to choose though, Russ. I think both these teams are making the same kind of horsepower. Same aerodynamics, of course, same body shape. These late model Pontiac Firebirds. Here we go into pre-stage. Ferrer's in there. Nicholas Anderson follows him in. Ferrer already in stage, waits for Nicholas Anderson. Here we go on the green. Well, that looked to be Anderson away for my money. And at half track, nothing to choose. That's so close. Anderson just takes it by about half a car on the finish line. In slow motion, you can see nothing to choose in the reaction times and just hundredths of a second separating the car at the finish line means, of course, 1999 FIA European Pro Stock champion is Nicholas Anderson.
And yeah, it was a fantastic day, and it was very tough today and very close, typically Pro Stock. So, and we have a Jakob Ferrer to final, and he's a good driver, and it was tough.
Disappointing run for you, Jakob?
Well, not really. We ran pretty fast this run, so I'm quite pleased with the run, but they were a bit faster, so it's our time next time.
Well, he may be right. The championship already decided, but second and third place still very much in the melting pot for round 5 at Santa Pod. The big one then. Serious face for Barry Sheevels and equal concentration for this man, Gordy Bonin, leading the championship so far with the Prologue car. That beautiful paint job on the Wins car. I'm sure we're going to see that car in the winner's enclosure a lot more times in the year 2000. Well, a nice touch. Gordy shakes hands with Barry. Both guys suited up, ready to race. Let's have a word with FIA drag racing promoter Keith Bartlett.
Yeah, a real turn up for the books this weekend, mostly because Alan Jackson didn't make it and we all thought he probably would get through to the final. Perhaps more importantly, Barry Sheevels and Runa have really got the car finally sorted out and made some very strong qualifying passes. And although Gordy is leading the championship and is a very, very strong runner, I actually feel today just could be Barry's day, and I think Barry may just sneak by Gordy.
Whatever, this is going to be a great race. The two quickest cars in Europe into the final. Gordy Bonin leading the championship. Barry Sheevels has a lot of ground to make up, but finally everything coming together for the Wins team. The clutch packs are starting to work. Everything on the car, don't forget this was all new for 1999, and a big steep learning curve for the team. Rust, your thoughts on this final?
If Barry can get his car to hook up on the track here at Gardemoen, then I would favour Barry Sheevels to take the win. And if he did take the win, I think it's still technically possible, depending on the actual number of cars turning up at Santapod, for him still to win the championship.
Well, a mountain of experience in that Prolong car. Gordy Bonin, you can't give him anything. He's going to be out there, you know he's going to be out there with a quick reaction time. You know that the driving capability excels mostly the other drivers in Europe. He's had the experience of competing on the NHRA circuit, and life is very tough out there. Barry, of course, the champion last year, had a fairy tale ending to the season. We're about to find out. Both cars in pre-stage. Well, nobody moving yet, but Gordy Bonin knocks it into full stage. Barry follows him on the grid. Barry's away. Look at this. Barry Jones clinks it off. Well, here comes Gordy. Clicks it off as well and just takes the win on the final. What on earth was happening there? Barry Sheevels out the hole a mile ahead of the American. And look at that. Skittering past him goes Gordy Bonin. Even in slow motion, a .51, a good reaction time for Barry. But Gordy, nowhere to be seen. Barry clicks it off at half track. Here comes Gordy Bonin. Look at that snaking by. Well, what a turn up. Here's the championship so far. It's still pretty wide up. Gordy Bonin still leads from Alan Jackson and Barry Sheevels.
We've had so many things go wrong with us this weekend. I thought it was like Barry's car from the first two events. And it was like one of those, don't ever ask yourself what else can go wrong, because it's happened this weekend. And just before the final, we had something else go wrong. And I was thinking too much about that and lost it. And I saw him out there, and thank God he shut off.
In the previous round, when we, in the semi-finals, we had a complete clutch system. So we had to put all the old parts in and just make a clutch up. And it left really hard, but I thought I heard something inside there, and obviously if the clutch goes, over the motor, and that's history for the motor, and at the moment we just can't afford that. So I thought it was best. I mean, the championship's gone for me now, so I thought it was best to try and save the motor.
Well, the strip here at Gardemoen is deep within the pine forest, about 1 hour north of Oslo. This is round 4, and some of the championships could be decided here in Methanol. This man, Leif Andreasen, is second in the funny cars to this man, Michael Kagerad. If Kagerad wins, he will take the championship. Then in dragsters, we have this man, Jarmo Roivas. He could take the championship in dragsters if he was to win, but Peter Beck has got other ideas.
Although it's hot today amongst the pine forests of southern Norway, it's good air, and clean air helps create high horsepower, and that's what all drivers want.
And this man, Leif Andreasen, has got a lot of horsepower under the bonnet of his funny car. This is Methanol Funny Car's quarter-finals. Now Leif is #1 qualifier and gets a bye run in the quarters. Leif is currently lying second in the championship. Therefore, he's got to win today to stand any chance of catching up Michael Kagerad for that #1 spot. Leif Andreasen, a consummate professional who's been here many times before. All he has to do on this bye run is get through, but he'll want to put a quick time in so that he's got lane choice when it comes to the semi-finals. He'll also be aware that Kagerad, as the slowest qualifier today, will be going through on a bye run in the semi-finals, so a quick time will be essential. He goes into stage, waiting as he moves forward the extra 8 inches. You'll see the light light up, he's in stage and he's off. Runs a time of 6.033, that's 376 kilometers per hour. Now we have Alf Leanders against Leif Hollander. Alf Leanders in the wide car here. Not as experienced as Leif Hollander. Leif Hollander should take this win quite easy. You can see the crew chiefs there guiding their car back What they're trying to do is guide the car back onto the rubber that's just been laid down in the burnout. Traction is essential in drag racing, and therefore what they're looking to do is make sure the car is pointed down the strip and to ensure that when the car launches, it bites on the track and hooks up as quickly as possible. Looking inside there, the cabin of a funny car, immensely claustrophobic in there. Of course, if anything goes wrong inside one of these funny cars, you're in trouble, as Leif Hollander found out in Sweden a few weeks ago. The escape hatch in the roof is there to let the driver out. So both cars move forward. Leif Hollander there unusually reversing away from the pre-stage line. Both cars moving up now to pre-stage. The psychology of the start is essential. Leif Hollander is an old hand at this. He will certainly want to take this win. They're both in pre-stage. Alf Leanders moves through into stage. Hollander follows him in, and they're away at the green. It looks to be Hollander away first at half track. It's Hollander away. He's taking it all the way down to the line. It's Hollander takes the win. On the slow-mo, you can see that Hollander's away there with a 0.537 reaction time, only marginally quicker than Leander's. But at half track, Hollander is away, taking a comfortable win. This is Dan Larsen. He's up against Michael Kagrad in the left-hand lane, the green and yellow Pontiac. Now, unusually, Michael Kagrad was the slowest qualifier this weekend, having had many problems with his Quake Estate car. And usually, the slowest qualifier would meet the fastest qualifier. And if that had happened, Michael would have met Leif Andreasen in the first round of the quarterfinals. And the situation is clear. If Michael wins here today in Norway, he will clinch the championship. So fortunately for us, Leif had gone through on a bye run and Michael is still in the competition. On paper, Michael should easily beat Dan Larsen. Clearly, if he goes out at this stage, it looks good for Leif Andreasen. The crew chiefs, they're essential just to guide the guys in so they know exactly where the pre-stage line is in front of the cars. They're both in pre-stage. Now, who will go into stage first? Kagrad marginally into stage quicker, and he's away first. Larsen won't catch up. Impossible. Michael Kagrad is away. He takes it with a good time. That's 217 miles an hour. A reaction time for Kagrad there of 0.522. Dan Larsen very slow off the lights, but still taking a 6.397 run. Kagrad goes through to the semi-finals, where he will get a bye run. Leif Andreasen will meet Leif Hollander. This is Peter Beck from Switzerland, lying second in the Dragster Championship to Finland's Jarmo Roivas. Now Peter Beck will meet Kari Eskelinen in the semi-finals. On paper, Peter Beck should take the win. Peter Beck qualified with a time of 5.762 versus Kari Eskelinen's time of a comparatively or very slow 8.441. So again, Beck should take this one and move through into the final, where he would anticipate meeting Jarmo Roivas. If Beck doesn't win or go through, he's going to have a big struggle trying to catch up in the championship. Kari Eskelinen is currently lying 5th in the championship with no realistic chance of getting on the podium. But as a matter of pride, will want to do well this weekend. So as the tension mounts, with only one round to go after Norway, both these cars in the semi-final move towards the timing lights. Both cars in pre-stage. It's a question of who will roll into stage. It's Eskelinen and Beck. They're away. Eskelinen left on the lights there. Beck taking a comparatively easy run. So looking at the start again, we can see Eskelinen lighting his tyres up there. But looking at the reaction times, Beck red lit. Peter Beck from Switzerland, last year's champion, is out. He red lit with a time of .203. Beck is out. Now this man, Jarmo Roivas, would have seen that, realising one of his biggest competitors is out. So now we have Jarmo Roivas versus Dave Wilson. Good burnout from Jarmo Roivas. Now watch this burnout from Dave Wilson. I guarantee he'll probably end up about halfway up the strip. Now Dave Wilson actually qualified above Jarmo Roivas. So even though Jarmo is leading the championship, Dave Wilson could be expected to take this win. Now, if he did, obviously Jarmo is going to lose any advantage of Peter Beck having gone out in the other semis. Again, if Jarmo was to win today, it will put him a long way in front of the championship. It wouldn't conclude it, but it would make it very difficult for the other drivers to catch up at Santopod Raceway in England, which is the 5th and final round coming up soon. Dave Wilson from England, Jarmo Roivas from Finland. Those cars move up to the staging beams. It's Wilson in stage first. Roivas is holding him there. Roivas moves into stage, and at the lights, it's Wilson away first. Wilson at half track is half a car up. Roivas could power past him, but he doesn't. It's Wilson who takes the win. Great news for his team there, and an upset here in Norway. But let's take a look at that start again. Roivas is away .676, but Wilson is quicker. You can see the air intake on Wilson's Dragster, which is larger than Roivas. Maybe that's making the difference. He powers through. 240 miles an hour for Roivas, 238 for Wilson. So this is how the final will look. Dave Wilson versus Kari Eskelinen. Now it's back to the action here at Gardermoen in Norway with the FIA European Drag Racing Championship. This is the semi-finals of Top Methanol Funny Car. This man you're looking at is Leif Andreasen, last year's champion. Now again, just to remind you, he's lying second in the championship. He needs to win here in Norway. It means that he must beat Leif Hollander, who's in the blue and white car in the opposite lane. Leif Hollander, though, extremely competitive, certainly capable of winning this race. Leif Andreasen will take nothing for granted. The thousands of spectators here at Gardermoen look on at the funny cars. Always a spectacle, always exciting, and often very dramatic. The question is, who will go into stage first? My money would be that Andreasen will force Hollander into stage first. Both cars are in pre-stage. It looks like Hollander's in stage. Andreasen is waiting. He rolls forward. It's Andreasen in stage first. Hollander follows him in, waiting for the green. They're off. Hollander, it looks like he's out first. Andreasen, what a shape there, nearly hitting the guardrail, but Andreasen is through. Andreasen takes the win, keeping the championship alive. Andreasen, .534. Quicker out the blocks than the Hollander, but look how close he gets to that guardrail. He must be backing off there, but he's back on the power, and he goes through. Michael Kagerad on a bye run in the semi-finals. You would have seen Leif Andreasen go through there, which would have disappointed him, because he knows that he's got to meet him in the final. Now, my guess is that Kagerad won't put the hammer down on this one. I don't think there's any preferred lane here at Norway. So even if he ran a quicker time than Andreasen, there would be no advantage. Clearly a slower run means that he would conserve parts and wouldn't run the risk of breaking the car. That's de-icer being sprayed into the bug catcher on the top of the engine, because these engines running on methanol run very, very cold. And as you saw, the butterflies open at the start of the run there. And if they froze, there would be no power being delivered to the engine. That's why they put the de-icer on. So let's have a look. Leif Andreasen will meet Mickey Kagerad in the final. Now, so far this year, we've been watching the FIA Car Championship, but shadowing them has been the FIM Motorcycle Championship. We take a look at the Harley-Davidson Super Twins.
We started 10 years ago in 1989, and in matter of fact, we have improved a lot. Today we have a European Championship, and it started in 1994. We started with the first official European Championship in the Super Twins, and like in 1989, the European record was 8.36 seconds, and now I think the record is 6.90. Some guys has been running 6.83 now, but not backed it up yet. So, and over 200 miles per hour. So it's a big improvement in these 10 years.
We thought we'd take a look at Charlie Carling in qualifying, as despite smoking his tyres, he runs a 6.834, one of the quickest times in Europe. This is the final of the Harley-Davidson Super Twins. In this lane, it's Stefan Junerud, and in the opposing lane, Per Bengtsson. Now, the Harley-Davidson Twins don't look like any conventional Harley-Davidson, but they do borrow parts from the Sportster motor. Two-cylinder V-twins, both bikes move up to the staging lights. Both bikes in stage at the green light, they're away. It's Bengtsson away, they're half a bike up at half track, but he's moving very close to the white line in the centre of the track. If he crosses it, it's instant disqualification, but I don't think he did. Bengtsson takes the win. But he did appear to knock over some of the timing beam equipment there. You can see just how long these bikes are as Bengtsson comes in. Let's look at that start again. A good start there, but watch the bike on the left, how close he drifts to that white line. Don't forget, if he crosses it, he's disqualified. Both bikes running approximately 200 miles an hour as they cross the line.
I drifted to the left, and but I decided to hold on all the time, and I crossed the finish line very close to the foot. But I'm satisfied.
I'm sure we'll be seeing more action from the Harley-Davidson Super Twins soon. It's back to the cars. This is the final of Top Methanol Funny Car. This is Leif Andreasen. Leif, you're through to the final, but the championship is looking difficult.
It's pretty hard right now, but we still have a chance, and we're going to put everything, best effort we can to do it.
How's the car running?
It's not running like we wanted to do, but I think we have the power for the final, and I hope it's going to run good without tire shakes. I have real bad tire shakes the last run, and the car was moving out to the guardrail, and it was tough to drive that one.
He'll be up against this man, Michael Kagrad, but things haven't been going well. Michael, you've been having problems all weekend. What's been going wrong?
We have shaked the tires every round except the semi-final pass here. So we have had a lot of job and a lot of problems this weekend, but so far we are in the final anyway. So.
And you're up against Leif, your main championship contender, but I think if you win today, the championship is almost yours?
I'm not sure, I haven't count point yet, but I'm happy if I can win the final.
Well, there's no doubt that if Michael Kagrad in this funny car beats this man, Leif Andreasen, it's going to be almost impossible for him to be caught at the 5th and final round at Santipod Raceway in England. So the pressure is very much on Andreasen. But Mickey Kagrad here has been having problems, as he said in the interview. So Andreasen may decide just to make sure that he gets a clean run up the strip. Both cars very well prepared. Both drivers excellent ambassadors for the sport of drag racing. We spoke to Keith Bartlett to find out who he thought would win in the final.
Michael Cagrad's had a wonderful season. He's all but clinched the championship. However, this weekend, Leif Andreasen had to put a new motor in. He's been running incredibly hard, and I actually feel Leif Andreasen will probably beat Michael in the final.
Not to take anything away from this man, Michael Cagrad, of course the crowds will want Leif Andreasen to win to keep the championship alive as we move into the 5th and final round. You can see the final adjustments being made to the car. That's the escape hatch that the crew chief is looking through. Leif Andreasen will be sitting there concentrating, thinking about who's going to be forced into stage first. This, again, very important to decide. Do you want to sit in stage waiting for the other guy to come in, or should you go straight in to make sure that you're anticipating the start? A very important race here in the offing. Both cars are in pre-stage. Cagrad goes into stage first. He keeps him waiting. 1, 2, 3. This is too long. Andreasen rolls into stage. They're away. Andreasen is away first. Cagrad out of shape. Andreasen up the track. Half track. He's got it. Andreasen takes the win. And in fact, some of his bodywork seems to come away there. As the chutes open and the cars decelerate, Andreasen very much back in the hunt. But let's look at that start again. Andreasen away there, 0.45 versus 0.488 to Cagrad. Drifting a bit towards the centre there, Andreasen coming through for a very clean win.
I think Mickey is pretty upset about that. I hold him on the starting line, but it was no, I mean, it was not like I wanted to do it. No problem at all with that. But I mean, I'm trying to do my best, and I don't want to screw up any competitors. And you know, it's hard with the engines and everything down there, so it's hard to run the car, and I lost the wing on the car, but what can I do?
Mickey, a disappointment for you there?
Yeah, it was a little bit, it was not exactly what I have wanted, but he's drilling me a lot at the starting light there, and I'm not pleased with that.
Let's see how many seconds he held him for. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Almost 6 seconds. It doesn't seem long, but when you're at full revs in a funny car, it's an age. In the championship, it's 3.23 versus 2.92. Wait for Santa Pod. Now, will there be so much drama in Methanol Dragster? First of all, let's find out from Keith Bartlett who he thinks will win.
I think it's a surprise for everybody that Peter Beck pulled a red light in the semi-finals. However, Dave Wilson and the whole team have run so well this weekend. I just cannot see Dave Wilson and that team being beaten.
This is Kari Eskelinen, hopefully going to prove Keith wrong. But this is Dave Wilson. Again, remember, he was #1 qualifier here this weekend. He'll be very tough to beat in this final. He'll want to win here because it will put him second in the championship. Now, if he is second in the championship as a result of winning here, it puts him in with a realistic chance of winning the series at Santa Pod. So just watch Wilson. Both cars moving up to the timing beams. They're both in pre-stage. The revs mount. I don't know what happened there, but Eskelinen completely leapt through. Eskelinen has red lit. Dave Wilson breathes a sigh of relief, cruises through to take an easy win. Well, Eskelinen jumps out of his car there, completely foxed. You can see in the slow motion replay, it just leapt forward. It looked like a mechanical fault. It didn't look like driver error, but whatever happened, he red lit. Dave Wilson with a reaction of 0.678. It was all academic though. A good time, 236 miles an hour. Dave Wilson takes the win.
We've had a good weekend. We've had a good qualifying session. We had a good race then. I don't know what happened on the start line. I think he overstaged a little bit and maybe got a red light or something. But we left as we have done all weekend and just short-shifted it a little bit because I couldn't see him anywhere. Just drove it right through the end and still couldn't see him. And apparently he's not here either, so that's okay.
Now in the series, Dave Wilson, 2.53. It's possible for him to catch Jarmo Roivas.